So it took me 10 years to write this book. And I was with them for a total of, well, Auntie Margaret the longest, 12 years. And it's taken me a while to write this because I wanted to have the right words to describe who these women were and my experiences with them and some of the magical journey that I took with them. So the key link to all three of them was Hokulea. So I was on the original Hokulea voyage in 1976. And the first person I encountered was Auntie Io. And this was after the voyage. We did another experimental voyage, ended up in Kailo Kona, and at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and behind the Hulihe'e Palace, a woman with a long white dress blowing a kanshao. Nobody knew we were coming into Kona, no one. Not even the Polynesian Voicing Society, not even our family members or friends. All our cell phones was in the 5-gallon container sealed. Nobody knew. And here she is in the back of the, well, we didn't know who it was. But that kanshao went off. Woo, woo, not the steady tone, woo, it was woo. And then Sam Ka'ai on the canoe sent signal back. And they're talking to each other. And then later on that day, everyone in Kona heard that Hokulea was in town. Because it's the first time the canoe returned to Kona after the voyage. And so, about 10 o'clock in the morning, the pier was choked with people. And all of a sudden, silence was coming towards us. The traffic stopped, people were standing up, hats came off, tourists did the same thing, and all of a sudden you see the sea of people parting ways like this. And you see this Auntie Io on the other side chanting with them kamaile leis in her hand, coming towards the canoe. And then gave it to the captain. And the captain said, "Oh no, I let Maka'ala do it because he's from Kona." And so Auntie Io comes to me, and it's the first. Come inside. And Auntie Io presents the lei to me and says, "We're proud of you, Maka'ala, and we'll talk soon." And that was the first conversation, right? We're invited to lunch. At the end of lunch, Auntie Io comes to me. "When you have time, come see me." And then my journey starts with her. And things happen. And conversation happened. Magical things happened. Altering weather patterns. Talking story about the old ways. Discussing about the protocols of the Ahupua'a, one district and another district, Kona, Hilo, Ana, where I can't go into this other district to go learn Hawaiian La'au, because they would tell me, you got to go back to your own district, boy, and learn from your own kupuna. That's how it was. But the Hokulea opened doors for me. It allowed me to knock on other doors outside of my community. And so that was a key for me, the start for me to go into this. So Auntie Io was the first one, and that was because of Hokulea coming into Kona. Mona was the second one, because Mona was available to me. There is a lot of encounters with Mona, and each encounter she would whisper into my ears, "When the time is right, we'll get together." And the time was right when that happened, and we had a chance to get together and have a conversation. And then my journey with her started. And it's all in the book here. I explain how that all took place. And it was just unbelievably magical. And the wisdom that was imparted during these moments. And so you'll see throughout the book, I have these wisdom, snippets of wisdom shared by these elders. But you have to pay attention. A lot of people give me feedback that they have to read the book twice. Because a book like this, you think simple reading, it is. But tons of wisdom in here, shared by these women. And so then Auntie Margaret was when John Cruz, not the musician, but John Cruz from Kauai, he was on the original voyage. He and I was working with Herb Connie in Kona, building canoes. And one day we had to pass the house, and I talk about that experience. And Auntie Mari is signaling to me, and I'm trying to avoid a signal. But you know, in the old Hawaiian ways, when you meet a kupuna in public, it's only pono to stop what you're doing and recognize the kupuna and at least say hello before you continue on your journey. And with Auntie Margaret, it was, woo. So that's a general statement of getting someone's attention. In this case, it was John and I. So I talk about this encounter and how we end up getting to her porch and how she demonstrated in front of her students on using me as a model. And then before leaving her beach house, come up to me whispering in my ears, "I want you, Maka'ala." So all three women sought me out. I didn't go to them. And so that's my encounter with them, but there's unique things was happening in these moments that I described in more details in the book. And so then my journey begins, and each one of them helped me to wake up. Hence my name, Maka'ala. Wake up! So, what else can I tell you about this? So, one of the things to me that's critical in all my talks, in all my conversations with Hawaiians and non-Hawaiians alike, is about the Hawaiian timeline. It was important because I have found over the years different understandings and different interpretation of our culture, our language, and our concepts, our modalities. And so let me read this is the chapter on, the first chapter, Hawaiian Historical Timeline, subchapter, Reference Points of Conscious Evolution. For many years, while giving talks about Hawaiian cultural practices, philosophy, concepts, and principles to both Hawaiians and non-Hawaiians, I encountered various roadblocks. In the early days, I thought it was my limited ability to convey my viewpoints. Later, I realized the interpretation of Hawaiian ideas varied from person to person, especially with Hawaiians. This discrepancy took me on a journey of inquiry into the common thread that led to this disparity. Consequently, the timeline effect was born. And so later on, I have a list of those timelines. So the following are the four main periods, eras of Hawaiian history. Number one, pre-Ali'i period, and subtitle equality. Everyone lived in harmony. It didn't matter about gender preferences. Number two, Ali'i period, elitism, elitists. Number three, the missionary period, relinquish, turn the other cheek. The occupation period, which is what we are in today, the illegal occupation of the United States. Subtitle, greed. So this is how I broke it down. And then I have an overview of it, and I go into a little bit more detail. And the reason for this is so the reader can understand, can see what these women had to endure in these different periods. Because they were born in the early 1900s, 1913, 1915, 1916, right at the tail end of the magical, mystical world of the Hawaiian, in this case, La'au Lapa'au. So I want to differentiate the hula world and the La'au world from my perspective, absolutely different. You cannot dovetail, you cannot link the two. It's just different. Protocols are different, approaches are different, learnings were different, way different, at least from my experiences with these three women. And Auntie Io was a Kumuhula Lao person, Kumuhula chant master, Kahuna Hula, I call it. And I did not learn hula with her. That wasn't it. It was a storytelling about Kona mostly, because I was from there, and how she wove information. Because the Hawaiian way is you learn through storytelling. And so I learned how to strategize my storytelling in my classes to include the people in the class and to understand and to learn about our ways from a pre-Ali'i period standpoint. So neutrality, where everyone is embraced. So here's the thing about a timeline. It's okay to have a reference point, a different reference point from one another in a common topic, like Lomi Lomi, or like Ho'oponopono, or whatever it is. Interpreting mana. It's okay to have your own interpretation based on that reference point. So Auntie Margaret was a Christian, so her interpretation of mana was through Jesus Christ, God, and so on. But to Mona, it was through who we are and our connection to the omnipresent and to the universe that exists all around us. So spirituality was interpreted differently. But it's like this. I said, but I should eliminate but. It's like this. We all can see a sunset today. Tomorrow, we interpret the sunset of what we saw, what our experiences was. And every one of us would have a different interpretation of that sunset. But it's the same sunset. And the reason is because of our upbringing, our influences, our cultural practices, our cultural protocols. And so with these women, there were no protocols with me. Because they understood that protocols limited ourselves from expanding. Because you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way. You have to pick a herb like this, and if it's this in the morning, and there's a mist, and you're a female, you have to use your left hand, you have to use your right hand. All of this didn't make sense to me. And so I questioned them. And therefore they understood that I operate without these kinds of protocols. And so they taught me differently. Right? So there's no wrong or right of learning our culture or understanding our culture. This is what I experienced, and I talked about that in the book. Interesting stuff. So the timeline was important. That's why it's in chapter 1. Because once we embrace each other's timeline, our reference points, now we can live in a community of harmony, of lokahi. Lokahi, anybody knows what it means?
Together.
Unity. Did you know that same word also means embracing diversity? Lokahi means unity while embracing diversity. This is the mindset of the original Hawaiians, the people that live here. Understand who they were. Now you can understand how to translate the information. And this is what I've been attempting to communicate with other people, Hawaiians and non-Hawaiians alike, to understand this concept, because it not only reflects for the Hawaiian people, it's in any culture in the world. Differences of opinion because of that timeline, that reference point within their own society, their own culture. And I'm all for embracing each other, each other's diversity. I'm open to that. Can we embrace each? Can we listen? Can we listen to the other person's intention, perception? Can we really listen to that? Or are we blocked with our own perception of what we think things are to be? And my teachers expressed full-heartedly to understand that concept, regardless of what their reference points were. Pretty cool. I look at it as pretty cool. Yeah. So let's go through some of the chapters and you can see how interesting the sub-chapters are. Because so the book is designed like this. Let me read something very quickly here. I call it it's the epigraph. Beginning of the book. Very short little snippet. But it's a very famous phrase a lot of Hawaiian community organizations use, and how I don't agree with their translations. Ekulia ikanu kako. Ekulia ikanu. Ekulia ikanu kako can be translated, hear me out, I said can be translated, striving for excellence. However, knowing the mindset of the original people, here's how I translate it. Ekulia ikanu, let us be on the path of inquiry. The moment you have a mindset of inquiry, you're now open to all possibilities without judgment. So, ekulia ikunu kako, Maka'ala, without judgment. Let us all be on the path of inquiry without judgment. And that, to me, is how I translate that little phrase. So I'm setting a tone where this book is headed, just by presenting that. And then I start with a puli. Epuli kako namu ita helu helu ita ipuke is what I say. So a prayer before you read in the book. So that's what I'm saying. So I'll chant it. I'll do a chant for you guys if you're interested. E kukahi maulu kuno maku mamu kualu mikaha. Nanaya maku mikuluku maika. Mahalu aku niya uik mea apau. Nui haavi mai ana po ikanaku na hoku kala kahunu kaua hamoana na mea aka na mea kauma. Ame kumaku mau me ya oai. Ala ka imai o ya maku inala pau nula hiki ya maku ko mau popo ai na me punu okio. E haki mai o mau ka pau ya la uho mai ko ani me maku i mana. Ya ka mana pau ye. Aloha. And the translation, in the spirit of love, peace, harmony, and respect for the omnipresent one source, which exists in all things, let us humbly embrace all truths, all people, and all possibilities. Thank you, Divine Spirit, for all things provided to us. Continue to look upon us with kindness and generosity. Thank you for the stars, the sun, our planet, the rain, the ocean, laughter, sadness, and our unique individual gifts. Guide us each day so we may better understand our true purpose in life. Let us all reconnect our sacredness and endless love from our soul to the one source in all people, now and forever. Love always, Maka'ala. This is how I start today. And then there's a foreword by Angela Leslie from Hilo. And then I have Polynesian protocol. I talk about the different Hu'auhau genealogy chant. There are different variations of genealogy chant. What got my attention, again, here's a hopefully again. I'm in Tahiti, and the average Tahitian in 1976 could rattle off at least 6 to 8 generations on both parents. Just like that. It was common practice to do that. And that intrigued me because I didn't know mine. So I had to research, I had to understand who my ancestors were. And so the other thing was, so that's a chant. And then the other thing is the kumo, my chant of who I am was never given to me when I was born. But that was a practice during Auntie Margaret's days, during Auntie Mona Kahele, their same age, that period, the early 1900s. They were still doing this. But poor me, I wasn't given a chant when I was born. Poor thing. So, I had to write my own chant. And I did. I'm not going to do it in Hawaii. He only know na puno o Maka'ala, Kahuna Ekolu, a hidden meaning of a genealogy chant. This is the Kahuna of my chant that I would love to have been born with. So I had to write. It took me 7 years to write that chant. Home now is his birthplace, a land that has long been sacred. Ka'avaloa is its distant sister. a land far beneath the sea, where the wisdom keepers reside. The wisdom keepers have gathered. It is the awakening. Arise, arise, keeper of the torch. The bonds remain intact. The pilihalawin of Ka'avalo is like a precious blanket for the newborn, carrying the voices Mo'olao and Kamailolo of Kipapanui. Kipapanui was the first to come from the land far beneath the sea. His famous bowl of light filled the darkness with divine life to awaken the ones that couldn't see. From the line of Kipapanui comes the life of Maka'ala, to carry forward the bowl of light with enduring hope and commitment for others to realize their true power. Refreshing is the land of Honau, the connection to the wise elders, residing in a land beneath the sea, ever so watchful and mindful, with hope and love for all. Love, love, love indeed. Pretty cool, huh? That's my chant. Yeah. Yeah. You can clap.
Wonderful.
You can clap. And then I continue on with chants. And this one here now is my teachers. I named them all, from my father to Auntie Phoebe. Auntie Phoebe, when I was 6 years old, introducing Nomi to me, triggering something in me. So my journey really began at the age of 6. Wow. I must be somebody. And Auntie Margaret, Edith Kanakaole, my language teacher and culture teacher here in Hilo at the University of Hawaii. Auntie Mona Kahuna Ekolu, young person, died too early, teaching me about the cultural ways and practices and the traditions, the ancient ways. Yeah, Allah Kana, wow, he's such a wonderful person. And to you, Yolanda, Mona Simeona. Wow. And to Margaret. Wow. You know, I talk about them. I'm honoring them. This is my teachers. And then I have it in English. Kupunahale, Kumamanao, another one. Yeah. And then I go into the Hawaiian pronunciation because I recognize that some non-Hawaiians don't know how to speak. Because I do put in a lot of Hawaiian words, phrases, although it's an English book. But I put it in, so all the Hawaiians are italics, and in parentheses in English. It's an educational thing. And then, so the first chapter I already read to you, and a pre-Ali'i period, I go on, and the Ali'i period starting from Pa'ao. Kamehameha first, second, third, fourth, Kalakaua, Liliuokalani. And by the way, Mona Simeona's mother was a lady in waiting for Queen Liliuokalani. She could heal broken bones through chant. This is the lineage, this is the heritage I'm carrying. Auntie Margaret said to me, in one of the stories, I talked about this incident about the battling of this kahuna. A kahuna from Maui came, and this psychic battles that was going on. Fireworks, you know, like the movie with the wand, you know, the kids, Harry Potter, you know, the two wands fighting each other, you know, it's like this. Two kahunas battling out on a conscious level, not a physical level. That was exciting. Yeah. And that's when I learned that from Auntie Margaret, that white magic always supersedes, always more powerful than black magic. Kahuna from Maui have a black magic we need to trance. And wow, what an experience that was to see that. And so the Ali'i period, and then I have the missionary period, and I list the key players, the descendants of missionaries' role in overthrowing Liliuokalani. Again, these three women had to endure all of these things. We are practicing certain practices in Hawaii, not realizing that that was caused by these people who indoctrinated us as kids to forget about who we really are. And I, for one, will never ever forget who I am and who my heritage and my lineage. I will never ever forget that. And this is a reminder why that happened. And then we move into the occupation period. Oh my gosh, the American occupation period, 1898 to present. And I talked to Keanu Sai. How many of you know Keanu Sai? I communicated with him, went to his house. I said, brother, I'm writing this book and I would like to include this in my book. Yes. And the little small part of how it happened, how the illegal occupation took place. This book is not a political book. This is not about negativity, it's about facts. Because I want people to understand what we as Hawaiian had to endure, but more importantly, these women had to endure. Auntie Margaret had to get a massage license to practice her heritage. I mean, she was a kahuna, but that's what they had to endure, right? Yeah. All three women masters in this book were influenced by the latter three periods, Ali'i, missionary, and occupation. They were all born in the 1800s, so their training was heavily influenced by the Ali'i period. Christianity had a varying degrees of influence on all three. Auntie Margaret was heavily influenced. Mona very little, Auntie Io had no indications with me. Yeah. Next chapter. 2. Kahuna, mastering the art. I'll just read it just a couple sentences. Growing up in Kona, Hawaii, it was respectful to address a teacher of a specific profession as kumu, teacher, followed by their name. It still holds today, but it is typically limited to a Hawaiian setting. On the other hand, it was not the same for someone considered an expert in a particular profession to address them as kahuna so-and-so. At least I have never heard my parents or grandparents use that title when addressing a kahuna directly. When they talked about the person, they would use kahuna as an identifier. However, kahuna was a title given to that person by the community based on the person's knowledge and abilities within their skilled area of expertise. You see, it's not self-proclaimed, it's the community that gave them the title. There wasn't a doctoral program or multiple levels of training needed to qualify for this prestigious recognition. It came gradually based on the performance of the trained individuals within the community. This was true at least during the pre-Ali'i period, before the hierarchical system within the kahuna circles became political, because it became political. But so the kahuna, what it is, a lot of people don't know that. In Hawaii perhaps, but even in Hawaii I have to differentiate things within the kahuna, translations and identifiers. But in non-Hawaiians don't know. They only know like, oh, a big kahuna, that kind of stuff. And I see advertisements of being a kahuna. And I say this, I've said this before, and I'll say this again and again and again. If someone tells you they are a kahuna, run the other way, don't walk. Period. Next chapter. So I do list some of the kahunas in here, at the titles. Kahuna Ha was Auntie Margaret's grandfather. The ability to diagnose without the person even being present. And Auntie Margaret witnessed her grandfather's medicine house, the shack. When you go down to Napo'opo, down to the bottom of that, before you the the road tees and stops, his house was right in the corner on the right, and then his shack was behind that. And he had all the ili stone on the ground in the shape of a human form. You go to him and says, oh, Uncle so-and-so or something, need help. They don't have to be there. Just give him the name. They go into meditation, prayer, and he comes out and with the stones. Huh? He comes out, he diagnoses them, he tells them who to see who can help them. And there's just a few things that are listed on here. And then I do talk about what Auntie Margaret, what these three women, what title they had. Because they carried multiple expert knowledge. And so, but Kahuna Ekolu, for me, was Auntie Margaret and Mona. And Kahuna Hula was, of course, Auntie Eva. But they had many other titles because they could see, they could see future things. They could change things. They could work with energy. So they had many titles. But I limited it just to that, just for the sake of having a conversation. Chapter 3, Hawaiian spirituality, past and present. And I start with the Kumulipo. So the Kumulipo is a chant of creation. Literally, the Kumulipo, beginning in deep darkness. So I find it very interesting about that. So I begin this chapter and I work my way all the way up to Christianity period. And even more, because you have Huna, is a practice around the world, started by Max Freedom Long, and volumes of literature that was falsified, made up. And there's all these documents about that. But anyway, it existed, so, and people are influenced through this, because Huna is the largest esoteric Hawaiian practice in the world. Huge. And the people who are studying it think it's a real deal, but it's not. So the Kumulipo was interesting for me, and I extrapolated and I came up with my own theory, because even today they're having a hard time translating. So it's an interesting Hawaiian spirituality. Yeah. And then at the end of that chapter, I have a little caption here. Which we all know. But I don't translate it how it's being translated. And I'm not going to translate it today because I don't want to hear that translation. Hear how I translate it based on pre-warrior mindset. The life, breath, and spirit of the land are always connected to the people and all living things. This is how I translate it. It makes sense to me. And then I go. And then the first encounter, I go in. And now I go into the encounters. First encounter, second encounter, Mona, and Eo, and And chapter 4, Valley of Choices. Choose your path. This is me. And Mona. Wow, that is an interesting story. You gotta read it. Chapter 5. The Naya phenomena. Naya is dolphins. Subtitle, Releasing of Souls. Wow, that was an amazing experience. The dolphins in the open ocean, as far as your eye could see, appear like that and disappear like that. We hung up for a while. And I took 2 rows of film of this experience. When we got to Hawaii, when we got to Honolulu, all the excitement, a news helicopter came too close. The 2 rows were sitting on the hammock in the back, flew into the water. And we were all looking at stunned because they knew I was filming this. Yeah. I mean, it was weird because we're sailing along. We're about 100 miles south of Wahine. We're sailing along, nice waters, good wind, not that rough, just smooth waters. And poof, just like that, the entire ocean was white water with dolphins jumping. And you know the idea that different species of dolphins don't swim together? Not today, not this day. Every species you could think of was there. Wow. Everyone. Spinners, big, small. It was so thick, you couldn't see below the water below them. And Nainoa, which you guys all know who he is, Nainoa Thompson, I was spotting him because he was in front of the canoe holding the rope with the snorkeling goggles, looking down and yelling, "Can you believe this? What the heck? What the heck? You know, and I'm videotaping him, right? So the entire canoe is jumping up and down, screaming, yelling, wow, 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 until all of a sudden we start to realize this wasn't a normal thing, and the entire canoe went silent because we all realized this was a sacred moment. Holy crap! We are in the middle of some sacred stuff. It's almost like, you know, Kamehameha walking through the door. Maybe not like that. So that was the story. But I talk about that, but there's more to the story than just that dolphin experience. Because Mona was key in this, right? And so, chapter 6, the Maka'ala ghost. Wow. Subtitle: Crossing Over. This is when I was dating her son. He was a surfer, Maka'ala. And it was about this ghost that I saw, and Mona happened to cross over. And I was privy to all of that. And that's how I know how today to have souls cross over when they pass away. So I've done it with my family members and close friends. And I tap in, and my job is to clear the slate, make sure there's no entanglements of holding them back, because souls can be stuck in between worlds. I have seen it personally many times, and Mona explained to me and showed me and demonstrated to me, and so I understand that as well. And so my job is to make sure. So one of the things that I encounter a lot is when family members are so sad, they're holding on to them because they're focusing so much on sadness, and you're not focusing on surrounding them with love, so they can cross over in a peaceful way. And there's 3 Earth days that happens. 3 days for the soul to transition out. When the 9/11 happened, I was doing I was conducting a spiritual retreat. What did they call it? What did they call it? It was like a spiritual retreat. 7 days. Meditation and so forth. And it happened that day. And when we got to the Tibetan Center, we were going to stay and conduct other things there, not with the Tibetan, but using the facility. They were in the temple, and the translator said, the Tibetans all over the world have been in meditation and prayers, non-stop, 24/7. They're going to do it for 7 days straight. And why? To make sure the souls cross over safely. Everyone was in anger and depression and sad mode, but the Tibetan was in love mode and helping the soul cross over. We forget. In physical form, yes, but what about the soul and spiritual form? We forget about this thing because we're too wrapped up in our own stuff. Anyway, neat stuff. Moving on. Crossing over. Chapter 7, short chapter. Chapter 7, Transmuting Energies. Subtitle, Clearing the Past. Yeah. Getting rid of unwanted baggages. Yeah. Mona strongly emphasized the importance of clearing all negative energetic patterns from this lifetime and past life experiences that were not pono. In the latter part of her life, Mona dedicated herself to clearing negative energies from her past life. She did this by recognizing souls she had encountered in other lifetimes. During her work around the world with Ho'oponopono allowed her opportunities to run into familiar souls. If I have harmed someone in another lifetime, or if they have harmed me, I want to resolve this conflict so I don't have to return to this plane of existence to repeat my lessons. Oki in Ho'oponopono, letting go, was about taking responsibility for all wrongful actions caused to others. It was equally important to let go when others have caused harm to oneself as well. We dwell so much on the outer physical world and forget the inner world which exists within us, she explained. Attention must be given to both aspects if we are to color, resolve patterns that do not serve us anymore. There's a lot of wisdom in this book like that. You got to reread it when you go through it first time through. Chapter 8, Meditation, Soul and Spirit Connection. That's where I created a meditation from my learnings with her This is my meditation. Malama lama. Wow. It's a meditation. This is the explanation. And it is, what does it do? The benefits of malama okanawa, light of knowledge. Triggers potential DNA activation. DNA activation means, Mona explained to me that the scientists think that there's only 2 strands of DNA. She says there's a minimum of 12 in everybody. And so when it's not activated, we only use that portion of our brain. So it's linked. Our DNA is linked to our capacity to use the brain. This is Mona explaining it to me. And we are only using 5 to 10% of our brain. Why is that? We are made in physical form. How come that the one element is not being utilized 100%? The heart is used 100%. The kidney is 100%. The digestive system 100%. But why are the mind only 5 to 10%? It's a DNA. We're being shut down by energetic patterns, influenced by other people. Come inside. This is informal. Come inside. Right? So we are influenced. And so DNA activation will help us to wake up. Increases healing frequencies. Protects from disharmonic energies of infiltration. A lot of that going on as well. Amplifies spiritual intentions. Harmonizes personal and environmental energies. Facilitates the flow of higher frequency energies from the earth, the sun, and the surrounding intelligence of our universe. Yeah. This meditation technique, right? And I teach this in the class now more and more, so it's too important. It's important for us to wake up. It will help us. Now we move on to Iolani and Wahine, chapter 9, the cosmos connection, learning through stories, storytelling. Yeah, interesting stuff. With NTE, it was all Hawaiian. We only talk Hawaiian. Yeah. Interesting. Chapter 10, now moving to Auntie Margaret. Kalehua, makanoi, lulu onapale. Kalehua, makanoi, lulu onapale. Is a born name. Margaret was a Christian name when she went to Christian school. Kalehua is what they call her. And chapter 10, You Are the One. Subtitle, Time to Wake Up. Wow. That was an interesting encounter. This is the one Joan and I walking by her house. Went up to her house. I was trying to avoid going to her house. So in a Hawaiian culture, if you don't address, I told you about the kupuna, the elder, the whole village gets involved. Because pretty soon, Auntie Margaret is going to call my mother and says, hey, Maka'ala is down on the beach. But he never said hello to me. What's going on with him? Next thing I know, calling my father, my auntie, my uncle, everybody's involved. Next thing, then finally you're going to come to me, Maka'ala, what's up with you? Right? So it's got to be respect. Ooh, Maka'ala. I turn around, I wait, and I did my part, and I continue. Ooh, Maka'ala. And then she wave like this. Oh no, now I got to come. Because if I don't come, same thing. No respect. Yeah, that's the interesting thing. Chapter 11, formal training begins. Lomi Lomi. That's what it started. Yeah. My work is Manalomi. And the work I do is not any of these women's work. It's Maka'ala. My work is Maka'ala. Yes, they have influenced me and they have shaped me into the person I am. But my work is Maka'ala. Yeah. Chapter 12, the Hawaiian ashram, the original 5. There are 5 of us, 4 women and me, all Hawaiians, helping Auntie Margaret for years. The original 5, Hawaiian ashram. Interesting. And then, what else? Next, chapter 13, the Book of Eyes. Subtitle, Internal Analysis. Yeah, the Book of Eyes. That was Auntie Margaret's name for the book that she had, that I cherished. And then from that, I studied with Dr. Jensen, iridology. Look at the eyes to analyze the human body. And I was taking notes with Auntie Margaret, who was expecting the elimination in pans. She looked at what you eliminate and tell you all about your life. You're eating on the run, you're not drinking enough water, all this stuff she would say, just by looking at the elimination. And then I would read the eyes and I would confer with her and see what I saw in the eyes that came out. So confirm things. So that's why when I read someone's eyes, I know what's going on in the digestive system, as an example. So the book of eyes, that was an interesting story. Now chapter 14, down to the bone. Oh yeah, touching the soul, the bones. Wow. We met a Kahuna Lua Kahuna from Papakolea in Honolulu on the Oahu, Hawaiian homes. We met her, she and I went. Interesting thing that took place there. This is a chapter that talks about the battle of the two Kahunas. Bones. You can tap into the bones. You can tap in to wisdom of the person that was in the bone. After a certain point. The moment you cremate the bones, though, the memory disappears. Chapter 15, plant medicine. There's a whole thing about plant medicine with Auntie Margaret. Auntie Margaret was like this. She didn't take me to go pick the herbs. She told me where to go and to gather the herbs. I come back, she'll inspect it. She could tell if I was pono or not. She can tell if I was mindful, if I was respectful. Did I leave a ho'okupu? Because to her, anytime you go to someone else's house, you always bring a ho'okupu. A package of oranges, whatever. Always bring some. Don't go visit somebody and not bring it. That's a Hawaiian. In the forest is our family. So we treat them like a real family. And so we bring a ho'okupu. So you can tell that you're looking at the plants. And if I have to go back or not. And let me tell you, I've been back in the forest a lot of times. The grandfather tree is an interesting story because it's about a tree here in Hilo. A mamaki tree, the biggest I've ever seen. I can't get my hands around it. It disappeared. Completely disappeared. Talk about that. Interesting. The grandfather tree is a mamaki tree. Very interesting thing that took place with the tree. And then I move on to what's next? The final chapter, 16. E ho'ululu, he ulu'ulu, e ho'ulu'ulu, the mo'olelo. The gathering of the story, capturing the story. Epilogue. My time with Lorna, Auntie Eo, and Auntie Margaret spanned 15 years, from 1976 to 1991. All three were born at the twilight of a mystical world that had existed for centuries in Hawaii and throughout the Polynesian Triangle. Footnote, the Polynesian Triangle is a vast area of the Pacific Ocean with three island groups at its corners: Hawaii, New Zealand, Aotearoa, and Easter Island, Rapa Nui. I have to put that because non-Hawaiians don't understand the Polynesian Triangle. As Hawaii's landscape transformed into a new westernized world, they too had to adapt to these profound changes. Despite these changes, they managed to preserve and continue the traditions of old Hawaii. Training with them was sporadic due to my travels and activities in Hawaii and other countries. Our extended time together was filled with in-depth discussions and high quality information. Mona and Auntie Margaret were my primary sources of knowledge in Maka'ala, Hawaiian medicinal therapeutics. During my travels, I had ample opportunity to put my training to practice. I spent more time with Auntie Margaret than the other two combined. All three women encouraged me to trust my intuition and be mindful of signs, both from the past and present. Throughout my journey, various signs and moments have sought to remind me of my true identity and my purpose in this world. I have memories of being in my mother's womb, where I felt safe. It was a sanctuary I sought as a child whenever I felt afraid, whether it was the darkness or my parents' arguments. Unbeknownst to me, I had created an energetic cocoon of protection whenever needed. I remember being in a crib and wondering how I got here and how I was not happy to be back into this world again. I experienced breathless states of consciousness at a very young age, not knowing what was happening to me. I felt a sense of protection from the women elders in my community, not equally given to the others in my immediate family. In 1976, when I was in okay, so I go now. It's interesting stuff. So I go over quite a lot of, recapturing the story itself. Wow.
Good synopsis.
Thank you for being on that journey. Yep.
Did you learn Hawaiian as a young child?
My father spoke in Hawaiian, but we spoke back in English. So we didn't learn the English, but at the Edith Kanakaʻu is where I learned it. I still don't speak fluent.
University Hawaiian.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's right. But that time, she was, she was.
But you understood it because it was spoken to you.
Yeah, I mean, yep. So, but then I've been on the mainland for so long, so I don't have anybody to communicate with.
Right.
And so the one thing that I would want to recapture again is to be able to speak fluent, and that will happen in this lifetime because I've set my mind to do that. Once my project is completed, I can now spend time for me. Yeah. Any questions?
That was great.